It was the pre-dawn hours of July 24th, 1948. The skies over southwest Alabama were clear, with the moon casting a soft glow over the landscape. It was a routine flight, an Eastern Airlines DC-3 cruising at 5,000 feet, carrying 20 passengers on a scheduled route from Houston to Atlanta. The pilots, Clarence S. Chiles and John B. Whitted, were seasoned veterans highly regarded for their skill and professionalism. They had flown through countless nights, just like this one. But this night would be different. At approximately 2:45 a.m., Chiles saw at first a glowing red object ahead, closing in fast. "Look, here comes a new Army jet," he reportedly told Whitted. Within seconds, the object was upon them. It streaked past the right side of their aircraft before executing an abrupt, almost unnatural maneuver, shooting upward into the clouds with a burst of flame from its rear. Both pilots got a good look at the craft. They described it as cigar-shaped, nearly 100 feet long, with no wings in sight. 2 rows of glowing windows lined the fuselage, emitting an intense, almost blinding light. Flames roared from the tail, suggesting some kind of propulsion system unlike anything they had seen before. The structure appeared metallic, reflecting the moonlight as it moved at an astonishing speed. Neither pilot heard any sound from the craft, an eerie silence contrasting with the roaring flames seen at its tail. The encounter lasted only 10 to 15 seconds, but it was enough to leave an indelible mark on both men. Chiles later stated that the object's trajectory was deliberate, as if controlled by an intelligent force. Whitted remarked on the uniformity of the windows and how the glow from within pulsed rhythmically, almost mechanically. Only one passenger, Clarence L. McKelvey, was awake at the time. He reported seeing a brilliant streak of light, though he did not make out the details described by the pilots. His perspective, however, aligned with their claim that the object moved with a sense of purpose rather than the erratic behavior of a meteor or natural phenomenon. Upon landing in Atlanta, Chiles and Whitted wasted no time reporting their sighting. Their accounts were quickly relayed to the United States Air Force, where the case was taken seriously. Within hours, intelligence officers were debriefing the 2 pilots, meticulously documenting their testimonies. The Air Technical Intelligence Center, ATIC, launched an investigation, gathering any available radar records and seeking corroboration from ground-based observers. Soon, the encounter was being discussed at the highest levels of military intelligence, with analysts struggling to reconcile the pilots' descriptions with known aircraft or celestial phenomena. One aspect that made the case so compelling was the credibility of the witnesses. Both Chiles and Whitted were experienced pilots who had served as Air Force officers during World War II, logging thousands of flight hours under combat and civilian conditions. Their descriptions were detailed and consistent, and they had nothing to gain from fabricating such an extraordinary story. Additionally, reports surfaced that a crew chief stationed at Robins Air Force Base in Georgia had witnessed a bright light pass overhead around the same time, further strengthening the case. The Air Force determined that their observations were too precise to dismiss outright. Project Sign, the military's newly established UFO research initiative, took a special interest in the case, compiling an extensive analysis of similar sightings. This culminated in a top-secret report titled The Estimate of the Situation, which boldly concluded that the most plausible explanation was that UFOs were interplanetary in origin. But that conclusion would never see the light of day. The report, carrying the highest classification, made its way up the Air Force chain of command. When it reached General Hoyt S. Vandenberg, the Chief of Staff, he rejected it. He found the evidence insufficient and the conclusion speculative. According to later accounts by Edward J. Ruppel, the first director of Project Blue Book, the entire report was eventually declassified and incinerated. However, whispers within military intelligence suggested that copies of the report may have been archived under different classifications, hidden from public scrutiny. With the official rejection of the interplanetary hypothesis, alternative explanations surfaced. Some suggested the pilots had seen a meteor, specifically a bolide, an extremely bright fireball. Supporters of this theory pointed to documented meteor activity in the region that night. Others proposed that they might have encountered a secret Soviet aircraft. though no known Soviet technology of the time matched their descriptions. A more speculative theory emerged linking the sighting to clandestine US aerospace experiments, possibly connected to the newly formed rocketry programs that were quietly advancing in the post-war era. Despite these theories, neither Chiles nor Whitted ever wavered in their belief that what they had seen was something beyond conventional explanation. Their unwavering testimony and the rapid suppression of the estimate of the situation only added to the mystery, fueling suspicions that the government knew more than it was willing to admit. J. Allen Hynek, an astronomer who later became a leading figure in UFO research, initially supported the media explanation. He pointed to the object's bright glow, fiery exhaust, and sudden disappearance, all of which aligned with the characteristics of a bolide. Astronomer and UFO skeptic Donald Menzel expanded on this idea, noting that July 24th fell within a period of heightened meteor activity. He also suggested that the pilot's perception of windows might have been an optical illusion, a phenomenon he termed the airship effect, where unrelated lights in the sky create the illusion of a structured craft. But not everyone was convinced. James E. McDonald, a University of Arizona physicist, conducted his own interviews with Chiles and Whitted 2 decades later. He found them unwavering in their testimony in a new detail that had not been widely reported before. Whitted told McDonald that the craft did not disappear into the clouds as initially claimed. Instead, it simply vanished into thin air. The Chiles-Whitted UFO encounter remains one of the most debated cases in UFO history. Unlike many sightings that rely on blurry photographs or unreliable witnesses, this incident involved 2 experienced pilots and an Air Force veteran, all of whom had everything to lose and nothing to gain by reporting such an event. Even after decades of analysis, questions persist. If the object was just a meteor, why did 2 highly trained pilots perceive it as a structured craft with glowing windows? If it was an experimental aircraft, why has no known prototype matching its description never surfaced? And if it was something else entirely, something beyond human technology, why was the Air Force so quick to suppress its most compelling assessment? The destruction of the estimate of the situation has only deepened the mystery. Was it truly discarded due to weak evidence, or was it buried because it pointed to something the government was unwilling to acknowledge? The Chiles-Whitted case stands as a pivotal moment in UFO history. It was one of the first sightings taken seriously by military intelligence, sparking an intense investigation that led to extraordinary conclusions, only for those conclusions to be dismissed and erased. Over 70 years later, we are still left with the same unanswered questions. The object they saw that night has never been definitively explained. Was it a natural phenomenon, a Cold War era experiment, or did 2 veteran pilots witness something far beyond human understanding? The skies over Alabama hold their secrets well. But for those who study the unknown, the Chiles-Whitted UFO encounter remains an enduring puzzle, one that continues to challenge our perceptions of what might be out there, just beyond the clouds.